call to order the Tuesday, May the 12th, 2020 Morgantown Utility Board general meeting to order. We had a set of minutes provided to us in the read ahead. And if there's no additions or deletions, I look for a motion to approve those.
I move to approve the minutes for the regular meeting of April 14th, 2020 as submitted.
I think we need a second, Barbara.
All right, second.
You're the only one there. Okay, a motion and a second to approve the minutes as provided in the read ahead. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. So the minutes are approved. A public portion, you said there was no comments, Tim?
Correct. We invited public comments to be submitted in advance in a number of different ways, and none were received.
Okay. And then we'll just move on to new business. The Killarney Drive bridge.
Yeah, there's a bridge near Collins Ferry Road on Killarney Drive that crosses the Burrs Run stream. And that bridge is in need of replacement. And adjacent to that bridge is also a MUB stormwater culvert. And the stream, the Burrs Run stream, currently splits, and half of it goes beneath the bridge and half of it goes beneath the culvert. There's a need for the city to replace the bridge. And at the same time, the replacement of the bridge presents an opportunity for us to improve the flow path in that location. It is not optimum for the stream to be split in the way that it currently does. That provides a potential restriction for the stream flow. In a worst case scenario, that can result in some upstream flooding. So while the city is replacing that bridge, we would like to partner with them in order to remove the culvert and allow the new replacement bridge to be the single unit that allows the stream to cross beneath that area. So that's kind of a detailed explanation for, we have proposed to the city that the city and MUB partner in the replacement of that bridge and the removal of the culvert. The estimated cost of the work is $230,000. MUB is finishing the design of that structure at this time. We'll not replace the bridge with a bridge, but instead we'll replace it with a concrete box culvert, as most of the other crossings in that area have been done. We did a big $8.5 or $9 million stormwater project in that neighborhood some time ago, 10, 15 years ago. And we used box culverts for all the other structures. But that bridge was relatively new at that time, and the city at that time did not want it removed. So we installed a culvert adjacent to the then existing bridge. So the proposal is that we partner in that project. We split the cost equally. The total cost is estimated at $230,000. We've achieved an agreement in principle with the city, and that's presented through a proposed MOU that we've presented for your consideration. It's in your packet tonight. So we ask for your approval of that.
Okay. Do we have a motion, or do we have some questions?
I have one question. I know that we're sharing this, and I'm wondering if the adjustment to the city council budget is going to have an impact on this as far as when this work was supposed to be done?
We've explored that at length with the city. They assure us that the money is already allocated, the money is already preserved, and is available, despite the city's current budget distress from the COVID pandemic. They are prepared and committed to the project.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a highly traveled road. It's the road that connects Van Voorst to Collins Ferry. It's a shortcut for a lot of people to go to Milan and in that way. So it's been a problem for the neighborhood, the bridge being out, for sure.
And I neglected to describe the schedule. We are completing the design now. We're planning to advertise for bids on the 21st and 28th of this month, to open the bids on June 4th, allow construction to begin shortly thereafter, and construction should be completed sometime in October of this year.
Wow, okay.
One question, is that a school bus route?
I don't know for sure. I would guess that it is. Chairman Straffus may know better than I do.
It probably is, but I don't know that for sure. Yeah.
And it's currently blocked, I understand.
Right.
Yeah. It's a parallel road to Burroughs Street, to Burroughs is what it is.
What I think is so unfortunate is that we end up without knowing what growth and development there's going to be, cutting through neighborhoods eventually to get from one part of town to the other. This happens to be one of those pass-through, cut-throughs through a neighborhood, but we certainly want the road to be accessible and upgradable and safe for everybody. So I move that we approve the memorandum of understanding with the city of Morgantown relating to the joint project for repairs and upgrades to the Killarney Drive crossing of Burroughs Run stream, with an executed copy thereof to be included with the minutes of this meeting.
I second.
Motion and a second to approve the memorandum of understanding with the city of Morgantown to replace and upgrade the Killarney Drive Bridge. Questions on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion passes. Okay, we'll move into the insurance policies.
First item under insurance is the renewal of our health and life insurances and related coverages. This is one of the bigger budget items that we'll address in the year. Our broker for this work is Dyer Insurance Group out of Clarksburg, Bridgeport. We have negotiated with them that they will continue their broker services into the coming year for the same fee as that we've had for the past couple of years. So that fee is unchanged. Dyer has solicited competitive proposals from 5 different carriers, and those resulted in 2 substantive responses. The health plan, which is our current carrier, proposed initially an increase of over 13%. And through subsequent negotiations, that proposal was reduced to an increase of 5.72%. Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield was the other competing substantive offer, and their proposal was for a net 5.4% increase. Now, those were for all 4 existing coverages, simply to be renewed for the coming year. We explored the possibility of to what degree premiums could be reduced if we raised deductibles from $250 to $500. Unfortunately, the premium savings were not significant. There was some premium savings to be had, but we didn't like the fact that essentially those savings would be paid in effect by the employees. And we felt that it was just simply not a good value, that the premium savings were not sufficient to cover the cost of the higher deductibles suffered by the employees. The one exception to that is on the use of emergency room services. We currently have a $250 copay for emergency room services. And we do get usage analysis reports on the number of ER visits that have been made, the nature of the visit. They're all anonymized to protect the employee's privacy, but we do get usage reports on that. And what we find is disturbing is that most of the ER visits are for non-emergency conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I can't really tell you why that happens. I will assume that it's probably for some variation of convenience.
Mm-hmm.
And even with that, it's disturbing that our employees are declining the use of urgent care facilities, which are significantly less expensive. Our urgent care copay is $35. And an analysis of our usage reports shows that our ER cost could be cut by 90%. The cost to the insurance company reflected in our premiums could be reduced by 90% if these urgent care cases went to urgent care instead of ER. So for that reason, we wanted to explore the impact on premiums by going to a $500 copay on the ER services only. And that resulted in a quote from the health plan for a 4.3% increase over existing cost, and from Blue Cross Blue Shield, an increase of 2.9%. Honestly, I'd like to see a little bit more difference between that and the simple renewal quotes, but it is a significant savings, and we think that it's time that we have to increase that copay. We've coached the employees for several years running. We've advised them that this issue is continuing to impact our premiums, that their use of ER is in most cases not appropriate, and that they should be taking advantage of urgent care instead. And so we think that it's necessary to make that change in the copay arrangement, simply to change behavior and drive behavior to the appropriate urgent care facilities. In order to offset that, for those people who go to the ER for valid ER type reasons, in the event that they are admitted to the hospital from the ER, their copay is waived. So in most cases, an ER visit will not cost the employee that copay. Management staff recommends that we award the contract for the year to the health plan for what is described in your paperwork as option 1, and that is a continuation of all existing coverages, all existing copays, with the only change being that increase in the ER copay from $250 to $500.
But there's a significant difference in price between Blue Cross and the health plan.
There is, but and just looking at that cost difference, the advantage goes to Blue Cross. But when you look at the details of the coverages that are provided, we find that in almost every case, the coverage provided by the health plan is superior to that than offered by Blue Cross Blue Shield. So that's one reason that we recommend the higher alternative of the health plan. And the second reason is simply to avoid the inconvenience and the overhead cost of the conversion from one provider to another. So we did consider that, but it's our recommendation that we go with the higher cost of the option 1 provided by the health plan. We think this recommendation preserves an important benefit for our employees and minimizes the impact on them of higher deductibles and copays. The management staff respectfully suggests that this is an important goal, especially in light of the economic sacrifice that our employees have volunteered to share regarding wages, and we'll discuss that in a little more detail in a moment. With regard to life insurance, we currently use Dyer as well for that as the broker. The Guardian Insurance firm is the current provider. We looked at competitive quotes from various other providers. There is some nominal savings, just like last year. There is some nominal savings to be had if we would split those various coverages, disability and life and dental and vision, up into the respective lowest provider for each. But we think that the efficiency of dealing with only one proven carrier offsets that small cost difference. And so our recommendation is a simple renewal with Guardian for all of those coverages. Dyer made that recommendation and staff concurs with that.
Let me go ahead.
Go ahead, Tom.
I have a couple questions. First of all, was there any analysis of the emergency room visits that did not result in an admission to the hospital to see how many of those types of visits would not be able to be addressed in a urgent care center? And again, I'm showing my ignorance, but I'm thinking that a parent who has a child with a broken arm, I'm not sure if broken arms are dealt with or not at a urgent care center. They might be in a position where they would have to go to an emergency room for that type of care. I'm just not familiar with what's involved there. That's the first question.
I would assume that an urgent care would refer a broken limb patient to the ER. I'm not certain of that, but that sounds like a plausible assumption.
But if there,
I don't know the case numbers, but I can give you the dollar proportions. That again, 90% of the ER costs that we incurred, and therefore I would assume 90% of the cases that were presented to the ER were more properly addressed at an urgent care facility.
well, I know I had an incident where I went to my primary physician and they immediately sent me to the emergency room. And I wasn't admitted to the hospital, but they had to go through extensive tests, and I'm including all sorts of x-rays and everything else. I would have been a little stressed if I had to pay a $500 copay when I was actually referred by my primary physician to the emergency room.
You wouldn't have to pay it if you were referred. The problem with emergency care is it is intended to be for emergencies. And we have a lot of people who find it, as you've said, convenient. I mean, even myself as a mother with a young child who has an earache in the middle of the night, and all kinds of horrible things come into your mind that this child will lose their hearing if you don't do something, you end up in an emergency room, when in fact, that's really not an emergency. And so it's so much easier. We know they're open. We don't have to be inconvenienced ourselves. But it's inappropriate. And the most expensive place you can seek care in a hospital is in the emergency room. So I understand our concern, and I do think it's worth trying to discourage our employees from using the emergency room for convenience. If it's a legitimate emergency, it will be paid. It will be covered.
Well, I understand that, and I didn't know that if it's a referral from a primary physician that you could, in a sense, get that way.
If that physician determines it's an emergency, it's covered.
The other question I have in the health insurance, does it cover annual wellness visits with no co-pays? What type of incentives are included to encourage employees and their dependents to practice preventive medicine, wellness, things along those lines that might be advantageous? And a good example would be, do we include in the medical care silver sneakers or any type of membership in a health club? Not that people are going to health clubs these days, but I think they've been demonstrated to be successful in curtailing certain types of medical problems.
It does cover, the proposed coverage does cover preventive office visits, annual exams, that type of thing, for the cost of I think it's a $20 copay. It's a modest copay. I think the number is $20. We do not yet have other incentives. We have offered reimbursements for programs to stop smoking. We've offered to participate in the cost of weight loss programs, but we've done that as MUB initiatives outside of the formal insurance program.
Okay.
Good. Good.
Okay. Other questions?
No, I think there was a lot of detail in this, which I, having worked with benefits before, certainly appreciate the effort that was put into this. Having someone else who we've employed to do that is a tremendous benefit, because it's very difficult for the staff to put all this together. So I think it makes sense not to keep changing from one period to the next for a few pennies when the administrative fees typically, when it's a small improvement, eat up that difference. So I can understand why at this point we might not want to change carriers.
And certainly premiums are important, but as you know, it's part of the insurance game where carriers who are not your current carrier will offer a one-time, apparently significant discount, and then they make it up the next year at renewal. So we always look for the proper balance where we do have a preference to stay with our current carrier, but not when we feel like we're paying a premium for the privilege of doing that.
I agree.
Okay. So we need a motion.
So I move to approve acceptance of the proposal form and award of contracts to Dyer Insurance Group and its designated carriers for health insurance through the health plan, option 1, at a price of $2,322,787.80, and for life, dental, vision, and disability insurances through Guardian at a price of $144,298.64, as proposed on May 6, 2020, at a combined total price of $467,086.44 before employee contributions, and authorizing the general manager and comptroller to execute all documents related to said contract.
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second to approve acceptance of the proposal from Dyer Insurance for the health insurance through the health plan and for the life, dental, vision, and disability through Guardian. Total price of $2,467,086.44. Questions on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed? Motion passes. Property and casualty.
Yes, sir. Our property, casualty, liability insurances are provided through the brokerage firm of Commercial Insurance Services, also known as Assured Partners, out of Charleston, West Virginia. Same deal as with Dyer and the health insurance. We asked CIS to maintain their current fee structure, which is now 2 or 3 years old, and they agreed. So there's no change in the broker's fees. And I should point out, in both of these cases, the brokers work for a fee and not as on a percentage basis of the premiums. CIS solicited quotes from One Beacon, Chubb, Munich, the West Virginia Board of Risk, Euclid, and Zurich. Out of those, we received last week a quote from One Beacon, who quoted a 6.5% increase. The West Virginia Board of Risk provided a quote, but it was nowhere near competitive. We worked on One Beacon throughout the week. They promised some better numbers, and we heard that other better numbers might be available, but not by our Friday deadline. So we allowed the carriers to work on this through the weekend. And last night we received updated quotes from One Beacon and a first quote from Zurich. Zurich did not quote last week, but they quoted last night. And through those, One Beacon quoted a 0.4% decrease from the current premiums, and Zurich quoted a 10% decrease from the current premiums. Those are for the property and liability coverages. For workers' compensation, which is also a part of this package, but offered through different carriers, essentially Brick Street is the only carrier available in West Virginia who covers all of the different worker categories that we need. Brick Street offered a 20% reduction from current premiums, and that's reflective of an improvement in what's called the EMOD score, which is their metric for measuring utilization of their services. All of these decreases reflect the success of our safety and risk management programs. We're told by all of these carriers that these kinds of decreases would not normally be available to the average applicant throughout the state, but they're all impressed with our safety program and risk management programs. Management's recommendation is that we accept the Zurich quote for the liability and property coverages and the Brick Street quote for a combined award through the brokerage of CIS.
Okay. Need a motion?
I move
I move to approve acceptance of the proposal from and award of a contract to Commercial Insurance Services for the Zurich liability and property coverages at a price of $289,230, and Brick Street workers' comp coverages at a price of $154,507 as proposed on May 11th, 2020, at a combined total price of $443,737, and authorizing the general manager and comptroller to execute all documents related to said contract.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion and a second to approve acceptance of the proposal from Commercial Insurance Services for Zurich Insurance for liability and property coverages, and from Brick Street for the workers' comp coverage. Combined total price of $443,737.00. Questions on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Employee requests.
Yes, sir. Needless to say, we live in unique and interesting times with the COVID pandemic. We always benchmark ourselves against the city. The city had originally proposed and budgeted a 2.5% increase for their staff, but then as the impacts of the COVID pandemic became apparent, they canceled that planned raise, and they've announced plans to actively, aggressively seek payroll reductions, including the possibility in a worst case of actual staff reductions. They hope to avoid that, of course, and we hope that they are able to avoid that. Recognizing that, and I'm going to go ahead and just read from my notes because I want to get this right, and I don't want to ad lib. Recognizing the current severe economic conditions, our employees have expressed their appreciation for their jobs, for their safe working conditions, and for the stability of their wages and benefits. They have requested only that their current wages and benefits be continued, with the possibility of a future wage increase, if any, if and when the board might determine that to be possible. And we've referred to these considerations and this request when we discussed the insurance renewals as well. I am thankful for the employees' approach this year. In normal years, they give us a wish list of additional vacation days and additional holidays and, a raise amount that we always end up negotiating. And but they read the circumstances correctly, and I think that they've proposed appropriately, and I'm impressed, and I'm humbled, and I'm thankful for the realistic approach that they've taken in making their request this year. So my recommendation to the board is exactly what the employees have requested. I have a second recommendation, and if you'll allow me, I'll just go ahead and proceed directly into it. Making the assumption that the board agrees with my recommendation and the employee's request for essentially a freeze on wages at this time, I do recommend that the board consider a special one-time award of hero pay to certain employees. Much has been discussed in national and local media of the heroic efforts of healthcare workers and first responders and truck drivers and even grocery store workers to provide essential services during the pandemic. And not to demean the contributions of those heroes in any way, but nowhere in those messages have our water and sewer system workers been recognized, despite the critical role that they play in protecting public health. While recent work from home initiatives that we've implemented have been successful, the simple fact is most of our employees, about 116 of the 153 total that we have, work in plants and in the field and perform tasks that cannot be done remotely. And although we've enacted protocols to mitigate the risk of the virus, their work has required that those field workers face that risk of infection on a daily basis, and further to indirectly expose their families to that same risk when they go home at night. With only a few exceptions, these dedicated public servants have continued to bravely perform their essential roles so that our community receives the same excellent quality of service that it always has, unaffected by the pandemic. I humbly submit to you that those workers deserve some form of hero pay to acknowledge their sacrifice and dedication. I've provided you a schedule showing the estimated cost impact for a range of hero pay payments that you might consider. And I ask that you consider that and act on that recommendation.
Can you elaborate a little bit, please, on what the in the field activities are?
Repairing water leaks, installing water and sewer lines, reading meters, answering customer complaints, basically keeping the water flowing so that it's no exaggeration to say that I think our customers can say that the delivery of MUB services has been completely unaffected by the pandemic, and I'm very proud of that.
And given the fiscal limitations and the impact of the virus, at what level do you recommend hero pay?
My suggestion is $500 per person and again, this is only for those employees who have had to work in the field and have not been provided the opportunity to work from home. The math is that there are 116 of those people, and at $500 each, that's about $58,000. I haven't done the math, but that's well under 1%. It's something close to about 0.5% of payroll.
If we were to get some funding from the state to defer COVID-related expenses, wouldn't this be an item that would be included?
It's hard to say. I would like to say yes, but I've been very frustrated by that whole subject of federal and state assistance to local governments and local utilities. I'll speak to that a little more in just a moment. Okay. The honest answer, Mr. Witt, is I don't know. Currently, I think such expenditures would not be eligible for reimbursement from any of those sources. I'm kind of shifting gears on you now. The unfortunate part is we're finding that very little of our COVID-related expenses are apparently eligible for state or federal assistance. We're scrambling to maintain a place in line to apply and make our needs known at every level of government above us. But my optimism is being tested. Our greatest expense, as just one example, so far has been lost revenues. And lost revenues from lower water demand, less water purchases from our customers is specifically not eligible under any of the current federal assistance programs. That is a topic that's still being discussed in Washington, and I know that our congressional delegation is working to hopefully have lost revenues included as an eligible item in any future round of CARES funding. But for today, we are specifically ineligible for reimbursement of that cost. Now, we do have other costs, significant costs, that we've incurred that are technically eligible, but so far that money has not hit the streets yet. The federal government has given the state of West Virginia $1.25 billion, and the state has not yet figured out how to distribute that money or where to distribute it. And frankly, I'm concerned that we're going to be in competition with the state. News reports say that the state's number one preference for the use of that $1.25 billion is to replenish the state's rainy day fund, not to put it on the streets for us or the city of Morgantown or any other local government to use. That's discouraging, but that's the current state of that matter.
Are you eligible for PPP?
We are not. But my understanding is that the PPE is essentially a forgivable loan that is in effect the reimbursement for which is a tax credit, and we're tax exempt, so tax credits are worthless to us.
I thought it was a loan of 250% of payroll.
We can continue looking, but I'm not aware of anything available to agencies of our nature.
Okay.
Okay. Tim, you in the read ahead, you had suggested that we have a motion to concerning the wages. Is that necessary to have a motion to freeze the wages? I mean, I have no problem with that. Just sort of like saying we're not going to do anything.
Right. I think it's appropriate. I won't say that it's necessary, but I think it's appropriate because it does include that open-ended promise. The wording that I've suggested to you does pledge to the employees that if and when economic circumstances improve, you might reconsider that decision. And I think that's an appropriate promise.
Sure. I mean, I have no problem with it. It just, yeah. So we're looking for a motion for that first, and then we're working on the hero pay.
Yes,
and you're saying 116 employees would be in that group. You're comfortable with that, and with that split there of how you're going to offer that to the employees?
Yes, sir. And to me, the key determinant is whether the employee was eligible to work from home or not. I think that's the number one criteria. We might have one or two exceptions in either direction, but that's the simple one. I've discussed with the employees. I meet with a committee of employees representing every department this time of year in order to talk about subjects like this and the normal wish list that they routinely give me each year. And when this subject came up, we discussed, well, what is the potential for the other, 36, 37 people who don't get this, the office workers like myself and the people in the engineering and accounting departments. What's the potential for them to cry foul and say, well, geez, why do the guys in the field get it? And the unanimous answer that I got back from the employees committee is that they all see the sacrifice and respect the sacrifice that these field workers have made to report to work daily. And to say it in a different way, all of these office people who are eligible to work from home, and some of us have worked from home almost exclusively over the last 6 or 8 weeks. Some of us have split that time half and half, but all of those office workers have responded that no, they appreciate the opportunity to work from home. They see a distinct advantage to themselves in doing that, and they think that the recognition and the appreciation represented by the hero pay is appropriate for those workers who have not had that option.
Okay. All right, so we're looking for a couple motions then. The first is on the pay raises or non-pay raises.
Okay, I move to continue current wages unchanged for the foreseeable future. with this decision to possibly be reconsidered if and when local economic conditions improve. To keep the current insurance contribution ratios based upon the date of hire without change, and to continue all the benefits unchanged except for insurance coverages and premiums as affected by the renewals selected in the previous agenda item for this meeting.
I second.
Okay. Motion and a second to continue the current wages unchanged for the foreseeable future with the decision to be reconsidered if and when local economic conditions shall improve or will improve or could improve. Questions on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes. Okay, Tim has recommended the $500 per employee for the hero pay. I'm fine with that. If there's additional conversation, if not, we can have a motion to that effect.
Karen?
I'll make the motion. While the board deeply appreciates the dedicated efforts of all our employees during these difficult times, I move to provide a one-time award of $500 per employee to our plant and field employees as hero pay to express our recognition and appreciation to those who, without the opportunity to work from home, have ventured forth on a daily basis throughout our community to ensure that essential water, sewer, and stormwater services continue at their normal level of service, even during this worldwide pandemic.
I second.
Motion and a second to show our appreciation to the field workers by awarding them a $500 per employee hero pay. Not that we don't recognize the work of the office staff. Do we have questions on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes, and please extend our gratitude to those workers, Tim, from the board as well as the office staff.
Yes, sir. I'll be happy to do that. I just want to add, it's a privilege to work with a group of people who have earned the kind of consideration that you've given tonight, and to work with a board that will make that kind of consideration and express its gratitude to its workers. So my hats are off to both sides of the table.
Well, it says a lot about those guys and women that they understand and don't have a wish list at this time. It says a lot about them.
Yes, sir.
So that's all of the new business. We can move to old business.
Okay. First item under old business is a report on the status of the Coben Creek project. Soil screening is about to resume if it has not already resumed this week. That may become a 24-hour-a-day activity in order for our contractor to make hay while the sun's shining, to try to make up for some of their lost time and the winter weather that's approaching. They do predict for us that if things go as expected, they should have all the soil for the dam in place by late October. Now that's except for the final top cap of the dam. They have to replace, to place, in round numbers, 90% of the earth in order to form the basis of the majority of the dam, and then they have to let it set for a certain period so that soil can settle and consolidate, and then they place the last cap. So I'm talking about that 90% that needs to be placed for the consolidation to be observed. And again, they predict for us that they hope to have that achieved by late October. That contractor is Kanawha Stone, and they are currently 26% complete. D&M Construction is our pipeline contractor for the raw water pipeline. Don't think there's any change in their status from the previous month. They're 97% completed based on length, and we're simply waiting for their boring subcontractor to return to town to do the length of pipe that crosses beneath Don Knotts Boulevard. Other than that, D&M is completed. And a firm that we've mentioned a few times, but They haven't done a lot of work yet is Reclaim LLC. They're doing some stream restoration for the environmental mitigation project out at Fike Run in Preston County. They've begun some stream work now, and they are 6% complete. Moving on to the, and I remember, Mr. Witt, that you want to make a field visit to the dam and reservoir, and we'll try to arrange that. Now that weather is getting pretty good, we'll try to pull together a visit. I haven't figured out how social distancing affects that yet, but maybe some recovery and return to normal in the next few weeks will make that question moot. But we'll keep that in mind and try to get something arranged. Moving on to the wastewater treatment plant project, that contractor is Ullman Schutte. They are 86% complete. Recent major work there includes replacement of blowers to the existing activated sludge process, draining of the first of three existing primary clarifiers in order to facilitate piping and mechanical upgrades to those clarifiers. Other new work about to begin includes some demolition of the existing flume structure, construction of a new splitter box for those primary clarifiers, and demolition of the old chlorine building. Recall, I reported to you last month that we had activated the new membrane system. That includes activation of the new ultraviolet disinfection process. And with that having been achieved, we can now retire our old chlorine equipment that was used for disinfection. And that's why we're now demolishing that old chlorine building. So that completes everything I have under old business.
Thanks. Okay, then we'll move to general manager's report.
Well, under general remarks in the GM report, of course, COVID-19 continues to dominate a lot of our time and attention. Our COVID protocols, work from home and workplace security and environmental and safety precautions will remain in place for the foreseeable future. Because we've had such success in maintaining essentially no change to our customers, we're going to be very measured, cautious, and judicious in our return to normal operations. So we will purposefully be behind some of the rest of the community in terms of return to normal business. We want to know that this return is going to work before we venture forth. I've given you some examples of additional communications that we've issued in the last month, some of them COVID related, some of them not. I'll move on to the financial impacts of the COVID crisis. The bad news is the 10% reduction in water usage and water sales that we saw last month, that trend has deepened, and that is now a 12.3% reduction in water usage by the community. And we are assuming that that's going to translate into a 12.3 reduction in our revenues. Now, of course, remember, our meter reading cycles are 2 months behind real time. And so it's going to take still a while for those reductions to actually show up on the books in terms of collections. But we're seeing in real time that reduction in water usage. We've had about $79,000 to date in labor cost from lower productivity or management attention spent on COVID-related items. We've had about $138,000 of direct out-of-pocket costs so far. I've given you a new tabulation showing all of those COVID costs. It reports data that is known and measured to the extent that we can currently measure it for the period of mid-April through mid-March. Yes. And then actual and projected numbers mixed to get us from mid-April through mid-May. So we have essentially 3 weeks of real data and 1 week of projected data in that middle column. And at this point, we're expecting those effects to continue for at least another month. So we've projected mid-May through mid-June as well. In round numbers, we're suffering losses, combined expenses and lost revenues of nearly $400,000 a month. And if that projection of recovery not being achieved until mid-June works out, then that's a $1.2 million hit to our finances. Some of those numbers, especially in the left-hand column, are a little different from what we gave you last month. Of course, our ability to pull these numbers together improves with time. So the first month that we did this estimate, we were grabbing with the best numbers we had, but we have better numbers available now. So that's why you see some change in that left column compared to the previous version of this spreadsheet. Again, we're taking these numbers to every level of government above us, asking for assistance. But again, the most discouraging response that we've had so far is that lost revenues are not eligible, period. Nobody even wants to talk about it, at least not until Congress possibly authorizes that use in the next round.
Okay.
If there are no questions about the COVID impacts, I'll move on to my last two items. One is the refinance of the Build America bonds. I did go to City Council at their Committee of the Whole on April 28th, and our proposal to request Council's assistance in pursuing that refinance was well received, and they have authorized the City Manager's office and his staff to work with us to pursue the goal of hopefully being ready to refinance those bonds sometime around mid-June. So the city is now pursuing the hiring of a bond counsel. That'll be the key outside asset that's needed to prepare for that refinance, and that pursuit is underway. And we're working with the city to pursue that refinance. And then the last item is the executive search for my replacement. And I'll report to you that agreement has been negotiated and signed. I've shared a copy of it in your packet. I had a lengthy phone interview with the firm a week or so ago so that they can better understand our culture and our goals and priorities so that they know better what kind of person they're looking for. So that their work has begun. And with that, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Okay, well, thank you. Very informative. Okay, well, we can move on to board member issues or discussions. Does anybody, a member of the board, have anything they want to ask or bring up to the staff?
I'd just like to say I'm certainly appreciative of all the effort that the employees have put into the work they do during this pandemic. Even the people who work from home, I realize it can be much more challenging than one would think to work at home and get done what needs to get done while living a normal, well, maybe not so normal life during our pandemic. So I do want these employees to know how much we appreciate them, and the fact that they're very sensitive to what our organization is going through. And I think in many ways, that also conveys to us a sense of trust in our management when they come to us and express their concerns. And in this case, understand that they did not ask for a pay increase at this time.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Okay, anything else? If not, we need to vote, a motion and a vote to adjourn.
So,
We adjourn.
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Okay, we shall join.